Hello, Miss Davis. I'm glad to see you back this week. How was your week?
It was okay.
Did anything improve at home with your husband at all?
No, not really. He's stubborn.
Okay. Are you not having any kind of communication whatsoever?
It's pretty much hustle most of the time.
Oh, that's really too bad.
Yeah.
I was thinking that, that hopefully by the end of these sessions that we'll find some way to bring the sexual spark back into your life. I realized that it's very difficult, especially at a certain age, because how long have you been married now?
We've been married about 15 years now.
Okay. Yeah, 15 years is a very, I call it a pivotal point in a marriage, because a lot of times things become strained, and especially if there's any kind of illnesses or disabilities involved, sometimes that puts a strain on the marriage. Let me just ask you this. Has your husband said anything to you at all about you coming to therapy? Is he okay with that? Would he be willing to join in at a later date?
I've talked to him about it, but he doesn't seem to be interested. And I've told him, I have prior experience and that it's helpful, going to therapy. But he just can't get motivated to go. He seems to think he has all the answers and nobody can tell him anything.
That's too bad. How is your relationship with your husband and your faith? I mean, do you go to church together?
We go, but what I notice is he runs out just before we get to the very end of the service.
Really?
Yeah, and I'm not sure what that is now. Lately, he's been saying he had to go to the bathroom and he wanted to get there before the crowd got there. Before, I think he was running out just so that he could go and have a smoke. And I don't know why he still couldn't wait to the end of the service, and then have it smoke.
Wow, that's very interesting.
And he would mask it by going to get the car and bring it up to the door. He said, "See, I went to get the car for you." So be there when we get out of service.
So he's giving the impression that he's being a gentleman.
Mm-hmm.
But you're not really buying that, right?
No, I'm not. Okay. I just think for whatever reason he wants to escape the last few minutes of church. And he wants to be the first one out of the parking lot. I don't understand that either, since we're in a large congregation.
Well, when you first got married, did you feel like you were evenly yoked?
I thought so, but, because he was always excited about getting up and going to church and everything. But as time went on, it seemed like, to me, I didn't think he was in the Word. It wasn't until we had more conversations that I realized that he had been raised in church.
Oh, really?
But what I had seen, it just looked like it was the social thing to do, to go and be seen at church. But he wasn't very participatory in it at all.
I understand. Wow, that's amazing.
Uh-huh.
So the reality in your relationship right now is that maybe do you feel as if that he gave you a false sense of security about who he was?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it was a major facade.
Now, I noticed that, that in the opening statements when we first talked last week, we discussed some things about what was going on with you, and it appears that you are experiencing sexual problems as far as intimacy is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but it appears that you are having problems relating to your husband sexually, and it's causing you to feel some anxiety and depression.
Mm-hmm.
You're not stimulated by him or turned on. You have no desire.
There is like no foreplay, or how they nowadays they say that men can really stimulate a woman, like if he's at work, call her and say sweet nothings to her, just kind of prep her for the evening or something like that. He doesn't do any of that. It just shows up, and I'm supposed to be ready, but he's not ready, and then he makes me feel like it's my fault if he can't get an erection. I'm like, in my mind, that's your body part. You need to fix that and make it work. It's not up, for me to do that. Now, I sometimes feel like he's not very experienced in the sex department. And
What makes you think that?
because over the years, it just haven't had much happen. He's had a lot of premature ejaculation, and I suggested that, maybe he needs to go to the doctor to see what's going on, and the longer I've been with him and talked with men that are older, around his age, they tell me that, yeah, they have problems like that. But he wasn't much of a drinker, and, I have a guy cousin that we talk about stuff like this. And he said back in the day, yeah, they would drink alcohol to get him stimulated. This guy doesn't do that, but what I didn't realize till later on is this guy, my husband, had been a drug addict. So I think
and you weren't aware of this before you married him?
No. Not only was he a drug addict, he had history. And so I'm like, okay. And then, now he's getting older, and there are some health issues. And I keep telling him he needs to talk to his doctor about it. But, the doctor isn't going to always find these things. You have to let them know. I know he has high blood pressure medicine, diabetic medicine, and I know from talking to my dad, those impact his sexuality. And if you don't tell your doctors that, then they don't know what they need to change.
Well, I can say one thing. You seem to be very attentive to what his physical problems are.
Yeah, I care about him. I want the best for him, but
that's important.
I can't get him to realize that. I'm willing to work through this and do whatever we can do because, I have prior relations, and if I do say so myself, I'm pretty good in the sex department. I can help him with a lot of things, but I refuse to totally open up with him if he won't communicate with me, won't talk to me.
Well, that was part of the reason for the homework assignment last week I gave you these open-ended questions that I wanted you to really, elaborate on. And it looks like we've already covered one of them. How would you describe your relationship with your spouse? And I think you covered that quite well. And how do you feel about yourself, though, in this?
I feel that if I didn't have self-esteem based on the way he treats me and some of the things he says to me, that I would be in a really bad emotional state. But my self-esteem is intact. I know who I am, I know what I can do, and I'm comfortable with me and my sexuality.
Well, that's really, really good. Do you feel safe emotionally with your husband? Do you trust him with your emotions?
Probably not. I mean, because he doesn't open up and talk much anyway. I'm not sure, what I can say to him, and he seems to have a problem with the way I say things. So,
do you think that? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, I think he takes things the wrong way.
Okay. The reason I asked you that because part of that safety net that we normally feel as women is part of our sexuality. It's part of our sensual nature.
Yeah.
And
I don't feel like I have the emotional support from him that I need to be comfortable with being 100% of who I am. I just want to be a silly little girl today. I don't think I can do that with him. I know I can't do that with him. And I think I need to be able to release like that every once in a while. I don't want to be the adult and the responsible person all the time. And in this case, I seem to be more responsible in a relationship than he even attempts to do.
That's really a very normal response, honestly. I think from what I'm hearing from you, that you seem to have a really good grasp of who you are, where you're going. And you do love your husband, which is really important. And you do believe in God, and that's important. I think the thing that I'm concerned about right now is, though, how are you going to be able to bring him in to the fold, pretty much? Because what we need to do is be able to get him to come in for therapy with you so we can talk about how he feels and be able to bridge the gap between the two of you. Do you think he'd be willing to listen and come in?
You know, I feel like he needs, and I think all men need to be held accountable to another man.
Oh, okay.
And his best friend was his father, who is now deceased. So he can't go to him and ask him any questions or share his concerns. But he also doesn't seem to have any close friends. And he made the statement to me one time that the friends that he had, because I said I'd never met any of his friends, are friends that he didn't ever want me to meet. So I think they're a part of his past that he doesn't openly deal with. He has a hard time in opening up and sharing, how he feels. Because I remember we signed up for a community college class on dreams.
Okay.
And they asked him a question about a dream he had, and he got offended. And I could understand that. And, they're trying to get him to verbalize what that dream meant to him.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't want to go there.
Okay.
I felt that he felt violated. And I thought, oh, this is not a good class for him. So we dropped out of that class and we took an herbal class. He enjoyed that much better.
Let me ask you this. Okay. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but you said that you want him to become accountable, but you also mentioned the men in his life, which is his father.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that he would be more comfortable with a male therapist?
Yeah, but I'm not sure how you would build a rapport with him to get him to open up, and talk. But I think he would probably sometime in the future maybe be open to talking to a man, but I know he's not going to talk to a woman.
Okay. The reason I ask that because we have other therapists on staff, and a lot of times when we have a client that we're working with, we may have to maybe co-share. Right. I may share, you with another therapist if that's going to get us from point A to point B. And if with your permission, I'd like to talk to one of our male therapists on staff about your husband and see if he'd be willing to maybe work with us together as as a not necessarily group, but mostly as a couple.
I think that would be good, but I don't know how I could get my husband to agree to that.
Okay.
That's the problem.
Well, you know what? The exercise we did this week was basically an exercise for me to get to know you. And the one that I'm going to assign for next week, maybe you can share that exercise with him. Maybe you can get him involved in it.
Okay.
And that exercise we're going to do for next week is a way to start kind of open up and do an overhaul of what your marriage looks like. Okay. And there's an exercise that I took from Dr. Smith. Okay. She's a therapist, and it talks about the marital ATM. And it basically what it is that it treats your marriage like going to the ATM when you put your ATM card in and you take money out, and sometimes you make deposits. And if there's no money, what happens? You're overdrawn. And what I'd like to do is have you and your husband participate